And for the reason that, you guard against repeating that same evil. So you try to put safeguards everywhere. Yes. But there is nowhere where it is illegal to insult God. Maybe the God of ISIS, which is not the God of Jesus Christ. Okay.
Father, before we get started, what we've discussed up to this point, it just really is depressing to see the state of our national government, the direction that's going to the Supreme Court, the political party. It's just really.
Yes, because there was, but it's not really. This is just it's like we are maybe just reaching the climax. But it started a long time back. Remember one of the U.S. Supreme Court judges? Okay, I can't remember the name, but I'm going to paraphrase what he said. Maybe some of you will know who he is. He said that at the heart of liberty is for each one to determine for themselves what the meaning of existence is.
Wow.
At the heart of liberty is for you to define your existence. What you say you were is who you are. That's what liberty is. So no wonder we have these bathroom problems now, because it was defined a long time ago, or at least he was writing at the heart of liberty. Can someone Google that, okay, or Yahoo it? It will come, okay? At the heart of liberty is for a human being to define their own existence. How can you define your own existence? Like a girl, where's this girl? In England or Norway, so some of the Scandinavian countries, she identifies as a cat. And she said that she was born into the wrong species.
That's going to happen. Wow.
Anthony Kennedy, what did he say?
At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life. Our system presumes that there are certain principles that are more important than the temper of the times.
So what does it say? Read it again. You listen, read it slowly and listen. This is a Supreme Court judge. Okay?
Was he a Catholic?
I don't know. I think he's Catholic too. Okay? But it's like the head was stripped of a brain. Read it again.
At the heart of liberty is the right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life.
Okay, so what does he call even life mystery? But the concept of one's basic liberty is define one's concept of
Meaning, a concept of existence.
Concept of existence. So I define my existence. Okay? Society can't tell me who I am. They can't tell me where I came from. I'm just here, and now I define existence. Then next.
Our system.
Meaning, existence.
Meaning of the universe and of the mystery of human life.
The mystery of human life. How do I define life? It's my right to define a child in my womb as not a child. Who is going to argue with me? Because that is at the heart of liberty. To define, for me, the meaning of life. So nobody else can tell me what life is. If I want to take drugs, okay, and that is how I define meaning for me. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what I should do, because at the heart of liberty is one's ability to define the concept of existence, of meaning, of life, of the universe, which means that at the heart of liberty is for each individual to make himself or herself God, period.
make to the world chaos, anarchy.
That's why I'm saying that it's like a man who is stripped of a brain and basically starts speaking.
Yeah.
Because just imagine a world whereby, if that is the case, why do we need the police? That's what I'm saying, yeah. But why do we need the police? If the police comes to me and says you are under arrest, by whose authority? And whose definition of meaning?
Didn't Pope Paul VI warn us of this?
Oh yeah. Oh
He
yeah.
warned that all of this was going to happen.
Yes.
This started with birth control.
Yeah, in his encyclical Humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He warned us.
Yes.
He warned the world. And nobody listened.
You don't want to listen. But you see, if you go by what that man said, a Supreme Court judge, what he said, okay, you don't need the laws, you don't need the police, you don't need parental authority, you don't need schools, you don't need rules in schools. Because at the heart of liberty is for anybody to define meaning and existence and life for themselves.
And total chaos.
Then everything will become total chaos. But that's a Supreme Court judge.
Was that in a dissenting opinion, or was that actually, I mean?
I think he was giving an opinion about something. I can't remember the context, but yeah, that's what he said. Okay. Did you check? Is he Catholic? I think he is.
They're quoting it.
He says he is.
Well, the majority of the Supreme Court judges are too.
But how can a person who identifies as Catholic say something like that?
Catholic in name only, they don't know what it means.
But even if it's just a name on, how can a human being who is over 20 years old, okay, you have at least seen some experience, how can they say that? But he's a lawyer, a judge interpreting laws. What is the purpose of laws after making that statement?
He's out of a job.
He's basically saying, I'm useless. You shouldn't have me here. That's one time a priest who was telling people, there's really no need for confession because we are all sinners. Then they don't have a job.
No purpose for
So
you.
Father, get out of here.
Well, how I interpret that is that he separated him, because the way the government is, you separate your religion from.
But this has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with.
I thought that's what the statement.
No, but the
was.
statement has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with common sense.
Well, that's
wisdom.
too far, but you're not understanding what I'm trying to relate to you.
No, I get it.
Okay.
It made
Separatism. It was mine. Separating.
Yeah, but here it has nothing to do with religion. The statement. Okay? It has to do with his understanding of freedom, liberty. Okay?
Okay.
So here, even if you don't introduce religion, okay, his statement is foolish.
Yeah, it is foolish.
So you don't have to be religious, you don't have to be whatever, you just have to be a reasonable being to recognize that each human being can't define existence, meaning, reality, life for themselves as they see it. Because if that's the thing, then you don't need laws.
Well, that's true.
Because how many laws are you going to have if each one is their own law? Each one of us here can come up with our own code of law. This is how I see things. This is how I understand myself. In other words, that's where we have come to this level whereby people, it's not like what do I think is right, but how do I feel now?
About the situation.
Yes.
Kennedy was the justice who cast the deciding vote on homosexual marriage. To split.
Yeah, because at the heart of liberty is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Okay, so the 8th day. But for us, a new day has dawned. The day of Christ's resurrection is called the 8th day. So the Shabbat was on the 7th day, but now we talk about the 8th day. So the 7th day completes the first day creation. The 8th day begins the new creation. Thus, the work of creation culminates in the greater work of redemption. The first creation finds its meaning and its summit in the new creation in Christ, the splendor of which surpasses that of the first creation. So why do we need a new creation? Because the new creation, we call it redemption. So why does creation need redemption? Because of sin.
Disobedience.
Okay? So which means that the covenant creation is space for covenant relationship. So the first covenant was violated by human sin. Okay? And therefore, the Sabbath was also violated. That's why we need humans to be recreated, and also the new day of worship to be blessed and sanctified and recreated. And so this is a very significant thing here, okay? That the first disciples were Jews, okay? Were Israelites, Hebrews. And for a Hebrew, the Sabbath is holy, you don't touch it. That's why the Pharisees had created so many foolish laws surrounding the Sabbath. Like telling somebody, you can't carry your mat on a Sabbath, because that would be work. And so Jesus comes and says, that's dumb. Okay? He tells them, if your donkey falls into a ditch on the Sabbath, would you leave it there until the next day? And the answer is no. Okay? So, I mean, they had gone to the level of basically being stupid. Jesus heals a man on the Sabbath.
You want to kill him?
And they want to kill Jesus because he is violating the Sabbath. And Jesus asks, okay, if you would care about a donkey in a ditch on a Sabbath, what about this child of Abraham who has been tormented by this evil, by this illness for so many years? That he can't be cured on the Sabbath? But that's how important the Sabbath was. Okay? And of course it has basically, those are misunderstandings of worship, okay, by the Pharisees. But that's how important it was. It's the day of worship, because the covenant centers on worship. But that covenant was, that's why we call it the old. Okay? It was violated and it needed recreation. And so Jesus Christ comes, okay, as the new Adam. Of course, we have also the new Eve Mary. Okay? He comes as the new Adam. And through the sacrifice he offers on the cross, he brings about what we call recreation. Now, what is the day of recreation? Jesus rose on the 8th day of the week, meaning the first day of the week, after the Sabbath. And so these Jewish men, okay, were able to recognize that now we are no longer celebrating the Sabbath because a new creation has dawned. Everything is now renewed, everything now is recreated. And so now the new day of worshiping God is the day of the resurrection, the day of recreation, hence the first day of the week. That's how they were able, Pope Benedict explains this very well. That's how these Jewish people were convinced and basically able to move the day of worship from the Sabbath to the first day of the week, which is the 8th day. Because something dramatic must have happened to convince a Jew to do that. And that dramatic event is the resurrection, the dawning of the new creation, which convinced these Jewish men and women that now this is the new day of worship. Okay. So that's why we celebrate the 8th day of the week. Now, what is that 8th day of the week accomplishing? Covenant relationship. And now this is the new and eternal covenant. Because the old covenant was violated by human sin. So now the new covenant is established by a man who is true God. Okay? And that is very significant for the new covenant. Because Adam and Eve were not created sinners. They were in a state of original justice. But they were duped by the devil and sinned. There was no human sin in the beginning. So the new creation here is a guarantee that there will never be a second fall. Because now the man offering worship to God is God himself. And therefore, the humanity of Jesus Christ will never fall away from his divinity. They are now united. We call it the hypostatic union. They are united, his divinity and humanity forever. That's why we call him our high priest, eternal high priest, according to the letter of the Hebrews. Eternal high priest. His priesthood doesn't pass away. And therefore, his sacrifice doesn't pass away. And therefore, the new covenant, the new creation does not pass away. It's simply moving toward its fulfillment in Christ Jesus. That's why we have the obligation to worship on the first day of the week. Because it is the celebration of the new creation, the new covenant relationship in God. And so we should do it out of love. The church makes it an obligation to help us do what we're supposed to do, the minimum of what we're supposed to do. But the life of the Christian, our entire lives, okay, are, as we said, it's a way of life. That's why when we get baptized into Christ, we become integral members of his body, continually receiving the Spirit from him. Sin, can block that and sever relationship. Okay? But that's why he left us also the sacraments, like reconciliation. Okay? So that if there are, things, obstacles, stumbling blocks to the grace of God, again, God can go to God and God can uproot those. So that is the significance of Sunday. We call it Sunday. But probably it's called the first day of the week. When we gather to do what? Worship. To break bread. Okay, the act of worshiping. Remember that the breaking bread is the biblical term for the Eucharist. The term Eucharist is not in the Bible. And it doesn't have to be. Okay? The term, but that's what we mean by the breaking of the bread. Celebration of the Eucharist, which you call Mass, the sacrifice of the cross. Why do we do it?
Because this is the way God told us to do it.
Why do we do it?
This is what Jesus wants us to do.
Because he commanded us to do it. Do this in remembrance of me. We explained the remembrance, right? The remembrance means three things. It's not like the English remembering. Because when you remember an event, it's in the past. Okay? But that's not what we mean by memory, remembrance of me. What we mean, this pertains to all the sacraments, and especially to the sacrament of the Eucharist. Every sacrament has three aspects to it. More so the Eucharist. It has a then so when we say memory, okay, memory of me, we mean all these three. Okay? And what basically this means, number one, is that it actually happened. It took place in space and time. Jesus was born into time and space. The incarnation actually took place. It's not a myth. It actually happened. So, the sacrifice of the cross actually happened in space and time. Jesus was actually crucified. Because today, because other atheistic arguments have failed, like Jesus wasn't really crucified, or he just went into a coma, he didn't actually die. All those arguments basically have failed. Now what they're trying to say, the new one, is that, well, the apostles were basically wrote, but it's a myth. Like the old myth about creation and whatever. So the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus is a myth. But again, it doesn't hold water. So because we have even historians who are not Christians who attest to the fact that Jesus of Nazareth lived. He existed. So that's number one, it actually happened. Okay? But what happened, okay, and this is a very significant thing. Let's see, explain. We will explain it looking at article, I think it's 1085, okay? The Catechism of the Church, article 1085, okay? So we'll be explaining this. Let's first, because this demonstrative dimension is very, very important. So let's read article 1085 in the Catechism. Okay? Are we there? 1085. In the liturgy of the Church, basically here referring to celebration of the Eucharist, in the liturgy of the Church, it is principally his own Paschal mystery that Christ signifies and makes present. Okay? So it's made present. During his earthly life, Jesus announced his Paschal mystery by his teaching and anticipated it by his actions. When his hour comes, he lives out the unique event of history which does not pass away. Those words are significant, okay? That's what we're going to explain. Which does not pass away. The unique event of history which does not pass away. It actually takes place historically and it doesn't pass away. Many of the historical events that happen pass away. Okay? Indiana voted when? Last week. It happened. It's done. Okay? When was our last presidential election? 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Okay? It happened, it's done. It doesn't continue. Okay? But
It continues.
okay? But here he lives out of the unique event of history which does not pass away. Jesus dies, is buried, rises from the dead, and is seated at the right hand of the Father once for all. Now listen, his Paschal mystery is a real event that occurred in our history. But it is unique. It happened in history, it occurred in history, but it is unique. All other historical events happen once, and then they pass away, swallowed up in the past. They are swallowed up in the past. The Paschal mystery of Christ, by contrast, cannot remain only in the past. Why? This is the key sentence. Why? Because by his death, he destroyed death, and all that Christ, okay, by his death, he destroyed death. And all that Christ is, meaning all that he did and suffered for all men, participates in divine eternity, and so transcends all times while being made present in them all. The event of the cross and resurrection abides and it draws everything toward life. So the key sentence here is, all that Christ is, all that he did and suffered for our salvation, for all men, participates in divine eternity, and therefore it transcends all times while being made present in them all. So if whatever he did, the commemorative, if whatever he did participates in divine eternity, and God, all time is one, therefore what he did is present to all time. and therefore it doesn't pass away. Why? Because it participates in divine eternity, God who doesn't pass away. And we explained this like on Sunday homily last Sunday. Okay? That's why the humanity of Jesus Christ is able to be present here among us as we celebrate the Eucharist. Why? Because God is everywhere, and now through his ascension, humanity is seated at the right hand of God the Father. What does right hand of the Father mean?
Made right with God.
Put by the side.
We say, lifted up, and now he sits at the right hand of God the Father. What does it mean? That the humanity of Jesus Christ, okay? Because remember that Jesus as God never left the Father, because God is one. Okay? So, right hand of the Father, okay? Right hand of the Father, what does it mean? That the humanity of Jesus Christ, this is the key word. That's the meaning of the right hand of the Father. Okay? The humanity of Jesus Christ participates in God's divine dominion over creation. That's why we call him King of creation. Because God is present to all time and space because he's the creator, but he's not part of it. God is not time. God is not space. He created it. And he's present to all of it, as we see in 10:85. So if he's present all of it, and now the humanity of Jesus Christ participates in that divine dominion over all creation. So where God is, there also is the risen body of Jesus Christ. Okay. So that's why, because his ascension, his passion, his death, his resurrection does not pass away. Because all he did, listen to this, all that he did and suffered for our salvation, for all men, participates in a divine eternity. And therefore, it doesn't pass away. So the demonstrative dimension is that what happened is actually happening now. This is not like Wolf Blitzer, happening now. It's like you want him to say, happening now, no news. Because sometimes they're happening now and there's no news. So, but this is very important. It's happening now. Why? Why does it happen now? What happened is happening now. Why?
Because there's no time.
There's no time in eternity.
Because whatever he did and suffered for our salvation participates in a divine eternity. That's why it's able to happen now. Because it doesn't pass away. Why? Because it participates in divine eternity, which is the now. To God, all time is one. That's the concept the letter of Peter tries to capture when he says, to God, 1,000 years are like a single day. Because to God, all time is one. To God, time is not chronos. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. To him, all time is one. So that's why we are able to make that sacrifice present through the action of the Holy Spirit. So that's the meaning of memory. So it's not remembering something that happened in the past, but it has no bearing on the now. It's actually happening because it happened. But why did it happen? And why is it happening now? For our eschatological glory. Eschaton is Greek for last things, heaven and hell, okay? So everything that happened, everything is what is happening is moving toward the eternal fulfillment, the heavenly kingdom. So that is the goal of everything. So when we say do this in memory of me, we mean all these three dimensions. not simply the commemorative. Oh, it happened, okay. Now we are doing our own thing here. Okay? So that is the meaning of that term, okay? Memory of me. So Jesus Christ commanded us. We worship because he commanded us. Do this. So we are fulfilling his command. But as we said, his command is what incorporates us into his new creation. So it is for our own good. Basically, it commands us to respond to the gift of salvation. Salvation is not a choice without a consequence. That's why he commands it. He doesn't request. He commands it. Because those who believe already won't be condemned. They already, that. But those who do not believe are already condemned, as we hear in the Gospel of John. Because I can't say, well, I don't believe, but I don't care about believers. If they want to believe, fine, but I don't believe. There will be consequences if I don't believe. And rightly so. What are the consequences? Because God created me for covenant relationship, and if I reject covenant relationship, I can't be. Period. I can't be what I'm meant to be. The devil was meant to be an angel. He refused to worship. He can't be what he was meant to be. A human being meant for covenant love, communion. If he or she rejects that communion, they can't be what they are meant to be. That's what we call condemnation, damnation. Eternally, you will never be what you're meant to be because you rejected covenant love. That's why it is a command, not a request. So that's the 8th day. So let's just read the paragraph again. The 8th day, but for us, a new day has dawned, the day of Christ's resurrection. The 7th day completes the first creation. The 8th day begins the new creation. Thus, the work of creation culminates in the greater work of redemption. The first creation finds its meaning and its summit in the new creation in Christ, the splendor of which surpasses that of the first creation. Because now the one who is offering obedience to God, who enters into covenant love with God, is true God and a true man. And through his flesh, through his humanity, we are incorporated into the circle of Trinitarian love, and we partake of the divinity. Okay? Okay. So briefly about man, paragraph 6. So remember we looked at the spiritual creation, the angels. Then we looked at material creation. Now we are looking at man, the crowning glory of creation. Okay? As we said, the importance here is that man is a composite being. He participates in both worlds, the material and the spiritual. Okay? That's how unique we are. Okay. So how did God create us? God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. That is Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, 28. Okay? So, do you see those words there? By here, the term man means all of us. It doesn't mean man, male. Okay? It means a human being. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So male and female are the image of God. So man occupies a unique place in creation. A unique place in creation. He is in the image of God. Okay? What does that mean? Being in the image of God. In his own nature, he unites the spiritual and the material world. That's the uniqueness of a human being. Uniting the spiritual and the material world. He is created male and female. That is significant, as we're going to see. Okay? And 4, God established him in his friendship. God didn't say to the plants, the fruit plants, oh, you are my friends. He didn't say to the oceans, you are my best friend. He established a human being in his friendship. Okay, now we are going to go through each one. Okay, in the image of God. Of all visible creatures, only man is able to know and love his Creator. So explaining in the image of God. So what are we doing there? Of all visible creatures, only man is able to know and love. Do you see the key words there?
No.
What are the key words?
Knowledge.
The key words are knowledge and love. Those words are so key, okay, in understanding the image of God. Man is able to know and love his Creator. Let's complete the paragraph. He is the only creature on earth that God has willed for its own sake. All the other creatures are for something. Cows are for us to eat. Okay? Yeah? And they provide something. But a human being is willed for his or her own sake. That's why the church teaches, and rightly so, that a human being, because God willed him or her for their own sake, therefore they are a subject, not an object. Hence things like prostitution are such grave evils, whereby a human being is made an object, not a subject of love. Okay? So, well, is their body? No, that's not how God meant them to be. They are made in his image. And therefore they must be subjects, not objects. So he's the only creature on earth that God has willed for its own sake. And he alone is called to share by knowledge and love in God's own life. So these paragraphs are so packed, When we go back to willed for its own sake, which means also that however powerful I may think I am, I have no authority whatsoever over your life. Because I did not create you. I have to approach you and treat you and value you the way God meant you to be. Hence, again, we're talking about abortion. Okay? Abortion is a lack of understanding of this reality. That this human being is a subject. It's not your body. You have no authority over God's work of creation. God does. And you do what he tells you, not what you tell him you're going to do. Today, even in the church, we have the tendency of telling God what he should do, because that's what we want. Oh, God understands. What does he understand? Because I'm going contrary to his will by telling him that, authorize it, stamp it. And God says, okay. So God is going to obey me, but I will not obey him. It can't happen. He is God, I'm a creature. Okay? So willed for its own sake. So if God wills and creates, no matter the circumstances, and some circumstances are very painful sometimes, okay? But under the circumstances, if he chooses to create, he has willed that human being for his or her own sake. And no other human being has any authority over that. That's why, by the way, in the Jewish tradition, they didn't drink blood. That's one of the reasons when Jesus Christ tells them, you'll drink my blood, they're like, who is this man?
Eat my flesh and drink my blood.
Because by saying that, drinking blood, Jesus Christ is basically attesting to the fact that he is divine. Because the Jews don't drink blood for the sole reason that blood symbolizes life, and it's only God who has authority over life. So if you drink blood, or if you shed blood, you are making yourself God. Which is the sin of the fallen angels, which is demonic. But Jesus telling us to drink his blood, it's an exchange that he became human to give us divine life. So now we have divine life because we drink blood, the blood of Christ. That is change. We receive life. So these are very significant things, okay? His own sake. And he alone is called to share by, again, knowledge and love in God's own life. We are called to share in God's own life. That's why we said before that all the other creatures, again, we can love them, but not with affectionate love or affective love. Not effective, but affective love. Because that love only pertains to a human being, another human being, not any other creature. Okay? Because other creatures don't participate in God's own life. So it's a creature which is capable of reciprocating knowledge and love. At the level of God's knowledge and love. So it was for this end that he was created. It's for this end, meaning sharing in God's knowledge and love, his own life, that we were created. That's the reason God created us, a human being. Trees for something else, okay? Animals for something else. But for human being, this is the purpose of our creation. To share in the life of God, in his knowledge and love. That's what we mean, image of God. So, it was for this reason and end that he was created, and this is the fundamental reason for his dignity. Our value lies in that. That we truly share in God's love and knowledge. But how are we capable of doing that? Because he made us in his image. But what is his image?
Goodness.
Let's end with that. Okay? What is his image?
Goodness.
Equals that by which that's the image of God, okay? That by which a human being is most like God. And we call that equals the
Soul.
the soul. That's why we're capable of knowing and loving the human soul, that by which we are most like God. So when we say God created us in his image, at every conception, when a child is being conceived in the womb of the mother, at that moment, that's why at that moment God creates a soul for that particular human being. Not that it pre-existed before, but at the moment of conception. That's why we said before that that act is not merely human, because God is involved in creating a soul. Okay? That soul which is capable of knowing God and loving God. Okay? So the two principal operations of the soul by which we are most like God are A and B, will. Intellect. Remember we explained the image of God. Image of God means to share in the knowledge and love of God. Okay? Love, we can always call it good. Okay? Knowledge and love. Okay? Knowledge is truth. Love is that which is good. Life. And so on. Okay? So, intellect because God is truth, He creates us to share in His life of truth by giving us the capacity to be able to receive Him as truth. Because for you to say that, okay, if I start right now that I want you to understand me, okay? I really want you to understand me. And then I start speaking in Luganda.
You lost us.
How are you going to understand me? You don't know the language. Some ways, because I haven't given you the capacity to understand me, meaning I haven't taught you the language. So how are you going to understand me? So in order for you to understand me speaking Luganda, I have to give you the capacity, meaning teach you the language, and then you will understand me. So if God wants us to receive Him as truth, if He didn't give us the capacity, it wouldn't have been our fault. Yes, God, you communicate, but I can't receive, I don't have the capacity. But He made us capable by creating us in His image, meaning giving us the gift of human intellect to be able to receive Him as truth. Okay. He gave us the gift of the human will to receive Him as goodness, to receive the good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do that. So the two principal operations of the soul that make us realize that we have a soul are intellect and will. And they're given to us as that by which we are most like God, because they are the two principal operations or faculties by which we can act like God. We have the capacity. So that we can't have an excuse that I can't know and I can't love God. Okay, that's the essence. Let's end with this text in Romans. Okay, Romans chapter 1. That's what Paul is saying here. Okay, let's begin with verse 18. This is very significant what we see in Paul here. Okay? Image of God. So He made us capable by creating a soul that by which we are most like Him. We have the capacity. Now, the capacity is one thing and doing is another. But every human being has the capacity. Okay? Now some may use the capacity to receive truth and goodness. Others may use that capacity to choose the opposite. But that doesn't mean they're not made in the image of God. Meaning that they don't have the capacity, intellect and will. Okay? So even the most evil person we encounter is made in the image of God because they have intellect and will. Okay? The capacity. So listen to this, what St. Paul says. We can't have an excuse that, God, you didn't give. No. The wrath of God is indeed being revealed. Verse 18. Okay? Being revealed from heaven against every impiety and wickedness for those who suppress the truth by their wickedness. The key word there is to suppress the truth by their wickedness. Why does Paul use the word suppress? Because they are capable of understanding. They are capable of receiving because they have been given the capacity. They're simply suppressing it. So someone who says there is no God, or I don't believe in this, they're simply suppressing the truth. Because they have the capacity in them. They have a soul, whether they deny it or not. They are using the soul, knowledge, okay, to reject the soul.